Why does it seem like the wicked prosper? And I think this is a very important thing that we have to struggle with, right? Like the proud, the powerful, they get louder and louder, and we feel small and smaller when we're trying to faithfully follow God. And we actually wonder, is God even paying attention to us? I just want to remind you that the Lord doesn't miss what people use power to hide. And in 1 Samuel chapter 2, we're going to see Hannah's song at the beginning, Eli's corrupt sons, the warning to the house of Eli, and the way God humbles the proud whilst lifting the lowly. And I'll give you one immediate action to help you let God's justice reshape how you think about power, worship, and your own heart in this episode of Biblical Unlocks. This show is designed to help build your habit of reading the Bible, understanding the Bible, and applying it in your daily life. If you enjoy episodes like this, please consider following and rating the show. It's free, it helps me out a lot, and you can always change your mind later. Now, let's get a little bit of context into the chapter. Okay, so 1 Samuel chapter 2 opens up with Hannah's song of praise, which is a prophetic hymn that's going to celebrate the Lord's holiness, sovereignty, and how her fortunes have been sort of reversed in a sense, right? So the proud are going to be brought low, the hungry are going to be filled, the barren woman is raised up as she was. And then the chapter is going to turn sharply to Eli's sons, who actually abuse the priesthood, ignore holiness, and exploit worshippers. So a man of God warns Eli that because he has honored his sons above the Lord, his house will lose its place and God will raise up a faithful priest. And the chapter actually ends with Samuel growing in favor whilst the old priestly house begins to collapse. Okay, so let's read the first 10 verses. The focus here is going to be Hannah's song of praise. And what we're going to see here is Hannah's answer to an answered prayer actually begins with God's greatness. Let's read. Verse 1. Hannah prayed and said, "My heart exults in the Lord. My strength is exalted in my God. My mouth derides my enemies because I rejoice in your victory. There is no holy one like the Lord. No one beside you. There is no rock like our God. Talk no more so very proudly. Let not arrogance come from your mouth. For the Lord is a God of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed. The bows of the mighty are broken, but the feeble gird on strength. Those who are full have hired themselves out for bread, but those who are hungry are fat with spoil. The barren has borne 7, but she who has many children is forlorn. The Lord kills and brings to life. He brings down to Sheol and raises up. The Lord makes poor and makes rich. He brings low, he also exalts. He raises up the poor from the dust. He lifts the needy from the ash heap, to make them sit with princes and inherit a seat of honor. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and on them he has set the world. He will guard the feet of his faithful ones, but the wicked will perish in darkness. For not by might does one prevail. The Lord, his adversaries will be shattered. The Most High will thunder in heaven. The Lord will judge the ends of the earth. He will give strength to his king and exalt the power of his anointed. Alright, so let's go through the song that Hannah sings. So again, she responds with a song, and she recognizes something, her prayer is bigger than her own happiness, and that her story is part of a much larger pattern in the biblical narrative. That is, the first will be last and the last will be first. This is something that God says, and we see this in the Psalms, the stone that the builders rejected has now become the cornerstone. The people who you think will not inherit the kingdom of heaven may just inherit the kingdom of heaven. Why? Because God humbles the proud and lifts the poor. It is impossible to worship God when your heart and your head is always looking down on other people. How can you look up at something that is above you when you're always looking down on other people? And it's interesting because the Lord is a God of knowledge, okay? That's what he said. That's what she says. That is to say that God knows hearts, he knows deeds, he's omniscient, he knows hidden pride. That's why pride cannot stand, because God knows the inner workings of your soul, and he will move heaven and earth to restore that relationship with you. Okay, let's read verses 11 to 17. The focus here is going to be Eli's wicked sons. And the focus here, or my question for you is, the corruption of worship is very serious, and I want you to pay attention to how it is happening. Verse 11. Then they left him there before the Lord and went home to Ramah, while the boy remained to minister to the Lord in the presence of the priest Eli. Now the sons of Eli were scoundrels. They had no regard for the Lord or for the duties of the priests to the people. When anyone offered sacrifice, the priest's servants would come while the meat was boiling with a three-pronged fork in his hand, and he would thrust it into the pan, kettle, cauldron, or pot. All that the fork brought up, the priest would take for himself. This is what they did at Shiloh to all the Israelites who came there. Moreover, before the fat was burned, the priest's servant would come and say to the one who was sacrificing, "Give meat for the priest to roast, for he will not accept boiled meat from you, but only raw." And if the man said to him, "Let them burn the fat first, and then take whatever you wish," he would say, "No, you must give it now, for if not, I will take it by force." Thus the sin of the young men was very great in the sight of the Lord, for they treated the offerings of the Lord with contempt. Alright, fascinating stuff. We remember something in Leviticus, actually, that the fat actually belongs to the Lord. That's why the reason why, they're not giving the fat first, they're not sacrificing the fat or burning the fat at the beginning, it's actually quite a big deal, because it shows, the fat actually belongs to the Lord. The biggest, fattest portion belongs to the Lord, and that's showing that if you are not offering that, especially in the ancient Near East context, where the devotion that you showed for your God was contingent upon the level of the sacrifice that you offered at the altar, and giving fat first is actually a command from, which is present in Leviticus as well. Now, it's interesting because their behavior is quite serious, in that they're desecrating worship. They take from the sacrifice, okay, and they treat holy things like they're spoils. So this is corrupt leadership, and it's in a sacred space. That is, it's directly impacting or assaulting on God's holiness. So it's interesting, again, because they don't know the Lord. They knew not the Lord. And the reason why is because knowledge of God is not something that you inherit, okay? These sons are the sons of Eli, of the Levitical priesthood. But their actions show something or prove something, right? That even if you know holy things, even if you're surrounded by holy things, that does not equal true knowledge of God. Again, your outward religious perception, how you are perceived, is not as important as the authenticity of the worship that you are presenting. Okay, let's read verses 18 to 21. The focus here is going to be the child Samuel at Shiloh. And my question to you is, why does the chapter actually shift from the quite real corruption that we saw to the quiet growth of this child? Verse 18, Samuel was ministering before the Lord, a boy wearing a linen ephod. His mother used to make for him a little robe and take it to him each year when she went up with her husband to offer the yearly sacrifice. Then Eli would bless Elkanah and his wife and say, "May the Lord repay you with children by this woman for the loan that she has made to the Lord." And then they would return to their home. And the Lord took note of Hannah. She conceived and bore 3 sons and 2 daughters, and the boy Samuel grew up in the presence of the Lord. Okay, so verses 18 to 21, what's the focus here? What are we seeing? So again, we saw a little bit of a shift in perspective of the chapter. The chapter is now focusing on Samuel and Hannah's blessings. And it's interesting because God is raising up the faithful, right? Even whilst there are corrupt houses, even whilst the priesthood is collapsing, there is a deliberate contrast here, right? Why place this section of the chapter in this particular place, right after the corruption we just saw? It is because God's future is not waiting for Eli's corrupt sons. It is actually already beginning quietly. And this is important because we're surrendering the will of God. Like, we're surrendering ourselves to the will of God. We don't need to be ashamed or even petrified about the things that are happening in our world, even though things can happen which are absolutely corrupt and wrong, and we can be dismayed in some sense. We can say and condemn what is going on, but we should never lose hope in the Lord who works all things for the good of his greater purposes. Okay, let's read verses 22 to 36. This is the final part of the chapter. This is going to be a prophecy against Eli's household. And my question to you is, why does God remove a priestly house that has become faithless, and Why is warning not enough when the heart is hardened? A little bit of a cross-reference back to Exodus. Okay, let's read. Verse 22, Now Eli was very old. He heard all that his sons were doing to all Israel, and how they lay with the women who served at the entrance to the tent of meeting. He said to them, Why do you do such things? For I hear of your evil dealings from all these people. No, my sons, it is not a good report that I hear the people of the Lord spreading abroad. If one person sins against another, someone can intercede for the sinner with the Lord. But if someone sins against the Lord, who can make intercession? But they would not listen to the voice of their father, for it was the will of the Lord to kill them. Now the boy, Samuel, continued to grow both in stature and in favor with the Lord and with the people. A man of God came to Eli and said to him, Thus the Lord has said, I revealed myself to the family of your ancestor in Egypt, when they were slaves to the house of Pharaoh. I chose him out of all the tribes of Israel to be my priest, to go up to my altar, to offer incense, to wear an ephod before me. And I gave to the family of your ancestor all my offerings by fire from the Israelites. Why then look with greedy eye at my sacrifices and my offerings, and honor your sons more than me by fattening yourselves on the choicest parts of every offering of my people Israel? Therefore the Lord, the God of Israel, declares, I promise that your family and the family of your ancestors should go in and out before me forever. But now the Lord declares, Far be it from me, for those who honor me I will honor, and those who despise me shall be treated with contempt. See, a time is coming when I will cut off your strength and the strength of your ancestors' family. No one in your family shall ever live to old age. The only one of you whom I shall not cut off from my altar shall be spared to weep out his eyes and grieve his heart. All the members of your household shall die by the sword. The fate of your two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, shall be the sign to you. Both of them shall die on the same day. I will raise up for myself a faithful priest, who shall do according to what is in my heart and in my mind. I will build him a sure house, and he shall go in and out before my anointed one forever. Everyone who is left in your family shall come and prostrate himself before him for a piece of silver or a loaf of bread, and shall say, Please put me in one of the priest's places, that I may eat a morsel of bread. Alright, quite a lot of content to go through there. I think the most important thing that we need to pay attention to is the fact that Eli rebukes his sons, but his rebuke is quite weak, right? It's that they do not listen. His heart is actually divided. So when he speaks, he has not acted decisively. And that's the important point to remember, okay? There's leadership here, but the warning without any firmness is too little too late when the sin that we're seeing with his sons has already hardened into a lifestyle. And what we read here, the chapter says the sons would not listen because, again, this is a hardened rebellion. It's not cured by a single person admonishing them. Instead, they have trained themselves to ignore the Lord, and that when you continually participate in sin, regularly, day in and day out, that can make your heart deaf even to good rebuke. And that is the most important thing. And actually one of the saddest things and most scary things about this entire ordeal, that we can actually close off our hearts to the Lord. But the deepest point of this story is that God will not share his holiness with corrupt leadership forever. So that is why he's preparing Samuel, who will become the bridge to a renewed word from the Lord. And the chapter is going to close with judgment and hope intertwined. That's what we see. And this is something that is going to be fulfilled in Jesus Christ. So let's take a look and see how that happens. So 1 Samuel chapter 2 shows the Lord humbling the proud. He feeds the hungry. He also raises up a servant while the corrupt leadership falls apart. And we also see these themes coming to their fullest meaning in Jesus Christ, in that Jesus is the true and faithful priest. Again, he never exploits his worshippers like the two sons of Eli did. He is the one who perfectly knows the Father and the one who lifts up the lowly, and he never becomes corrupt himself. And Hannah's song that we see is a preview of the gospel's reversal, that God brings up the lowly. In fact, Mary when she has conceived Jesus and is speaking to Elizabeth, she says in Luke chapter 1, verse 52 to 53, "He has brought down the powerful from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. He has filled the hungry with good things and sent the rich away empty." That is the gospel message. Complete reversal of power structures. The first will become last and the last will become first. Okay, so how can we apply this chapter in our everyday life? I think it's important to praise God for a reversal in your life, even if it's small. So there's going to be a bunch of reversals, and we're talking about this in the Bible. It's a very common theme in the Bible, I must say. The idea that the first will become last, the last will become first. Those who you thought were powerful, great, honorable are actually not all that in God's kingdom. So we need to pray, Lord, thank you for this particular thing in my life. Even if it's small, I pray and I thank you. For example, I thank you that even though I sin today, I know that there is a reversal. Even though I'm a sinner, you have given me your righteousness, and I can pray to you, and I can confess my sins, and I can come into good relationship with you. So I thank you for that. There's so many things you can be grateful for, so many things that you can be thankful for. And even when you stumble, the Lord is always with you. The greatest lie that the devil ever told you is that God hates you because you have sinned. No, God loved you. God died for you to restore his relationship with you. Alright, so that's it for this episode of Biblical Unlocks. We learnt that, again, Hannah's song is about God's ability to reverse power structures and to reverse what human standards are. Samuel's growth and Hannah's blessing show again that God is raising the next faithful generation, even if we can't see it. And God's warning to Eli is a promise that he will raise up a faithful priest. And that, I feel, is ultimately fulfilled in Jesus Christ. So that's it for this episode of Biblical Unlocks. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to rate the show and follow. It's free, it helps me out a lot, and you can always change your mind later. Otherwise, just have a blessed day. And remember, if you're not in your word, you're in your feelings. Godspeed.